I'm gonna start the video by saying my last video got a content ID claim, which it shouldn't have because it was protected by fair use. So from now on, whenever I do a video essay with clips from a TV show, movie, or whatever, I'm gonna put this disclaimer up for a couple of seconds so that everyone can see it. And with that, on with the video. If you back up my claim. When cartoons were invented, they were created in the image of humans, but as time went on, we decided to exaggerate features of our cartoon characters. These exaggerated features included their bodies, purposes, and traits. Then satire came along. Satire brought forth and exposed these exaggerations, comparing them side by side with real life. This is what makes a satire of a cartoon: self-awareness. Self-awareness that cartoons are far from reality. This self-awareness shows in the episode The Finale, in which the Watersons find that they must begin to suffer realistic consequences for their silly cartoonish actions. After less than a day of being their goofy selves, the Watersons get thrown into prison, and after breaking out like a cartoon character usually would, Anais says,
"Up until now, every bad situation has gotten worse and worse until it's somehow just fixed itself."
The Watersons then figure that if they make the situation worse in every possible way, everything will resolve itself. But in the end, this doesn't work, and the episode ends with an angry mob storming into the Watersons' house, as Gumball says.
The only thing that can save us is reality being completely reset by some kind of magic device!
Wow, kind of dark, huh? Apart from breaking the fourth wall, this episode is a prime example of self-awareness, as it stirs reality into the mix of this cartoonish world. Such a mix of reality and fiction is the perfect blend for satire, which Gumball has clearly mastered. Now that we've seen how Gumball has succeeded in the satire genre, let's take a look at how it handles its themes. A theme is what your episode is about and what it teaches. Most children's programs tackle lighter themes like friendship or teamwork, while Gumball tackles more mature themes like failing marriages, toxic friendships, and abusive bosses. For such a colorful show, its themes are dark and surprisingly down to earth. With all these mature themes in a children's program, it begs the question, is it alright for a kids show to have mature themes? It's a difficult question to answer, but we can at least try. First, we should understand the difference between a theme and content. Content is what your episode is made up of. The content of an episode is built around the theme, and Gumball's content is relatively tame and childish. Even if the show has a mature theme, its content is for children. This makes the show appropriate for all ages, as children children can enjoy the content and teens and adults can enjoy the themes. Of course, there are some themes that have to contain mature content, but Gumball doesn't go that far. However, this isn't to say that Gumball doesn't go far. It goes a lot farther than most children's shows would. Sometimes I'm impressed by just how far the show will take things. Let's look at some examples of that. This episode might need some context. Korea released a knockoff of The Amazing World of Gumball. Most shows would handle the situation accordingly, look the other way and ignore it. Gumball, however, took this issue much farther than any other show would. The Amazing World of Gumball made an entire episode about the Korean show called The Copycats, in which the Watersons discover a family that's just like them. After laughing at their clone family for being absurd, the Watersons boldly told their copycat friends to leave them alone forever because identity theft is a crime.
Be your own you!
Be your own you.
Try something new!
Find your own things to do.
Copying is clearly theft, it's gonna lead to your arrest. Be your own you!
This episode is a prime example of just how bold this show can be with its messages, especially if the message is screw off. Let's look at another example of just how far Gumball will take its themes. Of course, with every show there exists fan art and fan fictions. A lot of people who are part of these communities might say that these are pieces of an author's heart, with days, even weeks of heartfelt time put into them. Gumball, on the other hand, holds a more harsh opinion. Gumball made an entire character to represent these fans of the show. Her name is Sarah, and she is less than an appealing character. In the episode The Shippening, yes, you heard that right, The Shippening, Sarah finds a magical book with the Cartoon Network logo written on it. As it turns out, the book has the ability to change the reality of Ilmore when written in, and Sarah uses the book to ship all of the characters of Ilmore. And man, does this episode go some places. What surprises me about this episode is its sheer ability to not care about hurting anyone's feelings. That to me is pretty bold. With all that being said about that episode, let's move on to examining one of the key elements of the Amazing World of Gumball, the humor. I've done some studying of how Gumball handles its genre comedy, and it's clear that while it doesn't reuse jokes, it reuses different kinds of jokes. I've observed some clips from the episodes and found that the majority of the jokes can be categorized into 5 different types of jokes. Type number 1, misfortune.
Well, it took all day!
This can be slapstick or an emotional blow. It doesn't really matter, it's just gotta hurt. Type number 2, the commentary.
Have you lost weight? Your head looks bigger.
What?
Nothing, I just wanted to say I like girls with really short legs.
What's wrong with my legs? Wait, are you doing that creepy thing where guys criticize girls to lower their confidence so they'll go out with them?
You're way too intelligent for that kind of trick. Your parents don't love you. You look better with the veil on. Hey!
Sometimes we can find ourselves laughing at a clip simply because we can find it to be so true. Type number 3, the gross out.
Oh, what is this? Oh, that's a glass of milk. Cheese. That's a glass of cheese. Stone. That's a glass of stone.
Are you kidding me? That milk had to be at least 10 years old.
Well, at least there's nothing alive under there.
While this type of humor wouldn't usually work, when it's in the context of a cute-looking children's show, it subverts our expectations. Which brings me to type number 4, subverted expectations.
Well, I guess this shows if you bully someone enough, it'll eventually backfire so spectacularly that it'll teach you a valuable life lesson.
Which is...
I should bully even more people to learn extra life lessons.
What? No! The lesson is... Oh, you made a joke!
Subverted expectations happen when the show has us believe one thing, then shows us something that proves otherwise. And finally, type number 5, the misunderstanding.
Now, what you do when you arrive in prison is you punch the biggest guy in the room, then no one...
Ow! He said punch the biggest, not the fattest. Sorry.
Misunderstandings can be funny if they're ironic or lead up to a punchline of some sort. Gumball uses these 5 types of humor as building blocks for their great wall of comedy. I myself have tried to use comedy with varying levels of success, and it's pretty dang hard. So a show like The Amazing World of Gumball must have some real professionals working behind the scenes to make the show as funny as it can be. And I have some real respect for them. They've done a great job. Anyway, let's try to wrap things up here by taking a look at what we've learned. The Amazing World of Gumball is a brilliant satire of children's programs that dug its way into most of our hearts at an early age. And it continues even now to entertain us with its witty gags and well-thought-out humor. Its outward appearance has been intentionally crafted into a brain-dead kid show, and most of us probably thought that's what it was before we really gave it a watch. And that is truly how the show deceived us all. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell so you get notifications and stuff, and I'm done. I'm done here.